My name is Liana Rhodes. I'm 29 years old. I run a cosmetic studio in the heart of downtown. 20 chairs, 3 floors, 6 figures a quarter. My business card says creative director. The check stubs say founder. But at my mother's dining table, I'm still the one who plays with brushes. Every year, same script. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Mother's birthday. Take your pick. My sisters circle back to the same punchline like they're doing reruns for a laugh track. She's good with colors. Just don't let her do your taxes. Still working with lipstick and glitter? I mean, it's cute. Better than nothing. They'd say it while passing the cranberry sauce. Say it while asking me to take their group photos. Say it while handing me gifts wrapped like apologies. Nail polish, cheap blush palettes, store-brand lotion. I used to think it was ignorance. Then I realized it was strategy. You keep someone small long enough, eventually they stop correcting you. So I stopped. I sat through those dinners with my jaw unclenched and my mouth closed. I chewed slowly. I let their comments hang like they were waiting for applause. I smiled when it was expected. I laughed when needed. Never loud, because silence is how you record things, and I was keeping track. I grew up third in a household of 4 sisters, no brothers, just hierarchy. Rhea, the oldest, was the planner. Whiteboard schedules, color-coded family spreadsheets. She got into Cornell and majored in economics because Dad once said numbers meant power. Sabrina, second in line, was the performer. Lead in school plays, starred in a local shampoo commercial when she was 17 and never let us forget it. Then there was me, quiet, tan-skinned, soft-voiced. I cut Barbie hair with kitchen scissors and mixed nail polish to see how the colors bled. I got in trouble once for painting my youngest sister's eyelids blue before picture day. "You're not a makeup artist," my mother had said, wiping it off with a paper towel. "You're a mess with expensive crayons." They meant it as containment. It worked. For a while. I never failed out of school. I never rebelled. I just drifted between part-time jobs, unpaid internships, and a license from a cosmetology school they pretended not to know existed. While Rhea went to work in tech consulting and Sabrina hosted morning traffic on a local radio station, I was waxing brows at a strip mall salon and doing bridal makeup on weekends. One Thanksgiving, after I finished cleaning the dishes alone, Sabrina handed me a wine glass and said, "You know, you'd be a great assistant at Sephora. I could help you get an application started." I didn't answer. I just rinsed the stemware and watched the lipstick ring swirl away. Because that year, I'd already made $25,000 in side cash from wedding clients. And none of them had ever asked if I needed help applying. My sisters didn't hate me, they just loved themselves more. And when they looked at me, they didn't see someone failing, they saw someone refusing to play the same game. And that was enough to make me disposable, but I kept showing up, kept eating the food they didn't pay for, kept listening to their stories about promotions and podcasts and prenatal yoga, kept letting them think I was harmless. Because you don't correct people who enjoy being wrong. You let them find out at the worst possible time. There were months I couldn't afford groceries and setting spray in the same week. So I chose setting spray. Not because I was reckless, because I knew what I was building, because I knew every dollar of pigment was a seed, not a splurge. But if you'd asked my sisters, they would have said I was floating. Rhea used to text me job listings at places like Deloitte and HubSpot. She'd say things like, "You could start an admin, just get your foot in the door." As if cubicles were currency, as if power only lived behind lanyards and branded lobbies. Sabrina once asked if I'd ever thought about YouTube. "You've got the voice for it," she said. "You could be an influencer, like, work your way up to real campaigns." She meant it as encouragement, but her tone carried expiration dates. Like I had 5 years to go viral before I'd be laughed off the internet. They didn't understand what I was doing. Worse, they didn't want to. At 24, I was sleeping in my car 3 nights a week while saving up for booth rent in a downtown studio. At 25, I bartered services, bridal makeup for gym memberships, facials for secondhand lighting kits. I took clients in hotel rooms, drove 2 hours for a $60 job, learned to fake confidence in dim bathrooms with no counter space, kept 1 suitcase full of brushes, palettes, mirrors, and business cards I couldn't afford to print in color. The first time I made $1,000 in a single weekend, I didn't tell anyone. Not because it wasn't worth celebrating, because no one would have believed it mattered. My sisters were busy comparing 401ks. I was tracking my monthly average in a spreadsheet they would have mocked if they ever saw it. They thought makeup artist meant mall kiosk. They thought foundation was a phase. They thought I was playing. But I was watching the market shift, watching my brides tag their friends, watching influencers ask if I traveled. I started booking clients who didn't blink at $200 sessions. I started scheduling 6 weeks out. I started saying no. And in that shift, quiet, sharp, private, I realized something they never saw coming. I didn't need their approval. I needed their silence. So I fed it. Let them keep the joke alive. Let them believe I was still brushing glitter onto high schoolers for prom, because the more underestimated I was, the less careful they were. And that's the thing about people who laugh at you too early. They never see the invoice. I signed the lease under a shell company, not for legal reasons, for emotional insulation. The name wasn't flashy. L&R Studio Holdings. L for Liana, R for resilience. No pink signage, no Instagram until month 3, no ribbon-cutting ceremony, just drywall, light, and silence. The space was perfect. Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, cheap rent locked in before the developers realized the neighborhood was trending. It smelled like dust and opportunity. I painted the walls myself, brought in recycled stations from a salon closing 2 states over, kept every receipt. I built the studio from muscle memory, places I'd worked, things I'd hated, things I'd wished clients could feel. It wasn't meant to impress, it was meant to work. By month 4, we were booked out. Brides, corporate shoots, influencer packages. We weren't in a mall, we were in strategy. I had 2 freelancers working weekends, a part-time receptionist, and a silent investor who asked no questions, just wanted his wife to have first pick at openings. Deal. My sisters didn't know. They saw my new nails at Easter and assumed I had a sugar daddy. They saw the upgraded car and guessed I was renting to impress a boyfriend. Once, Sabrina asked, "You still doing makeup for cash, or is it Venmo now?" I told her I accepted Zelle. She laughed. So did I. Because they never asked me what I did, only whether I was still doing it. That same month, Rhea lost her job, laid off during a merger. No tears, just strategy. She called it a career pivot. Started looking into creative admin roles that would still let her leverage her leadership experience. Sabrina followed 2 weeks later. Station reformatted, ratings drop, contract not renewed. I saw it coming. They lived in borrowed prestige. You can't cash exposure. A week after that, the staffing agency I partnered with sent over a batch of candidates. I recognized the names instantly. Rhea Rhodes, Sabrina Rhodes. No resumes attached, just online applications submitted in haste. They hadn't seen the company name. The LLC masked everything. I said yes. Not because I wanted to humiliate them, because I wanted them to experience what they once called not a real job. The agency called them client services assistants, flexible hours, basic tasks, standard rate. Their offer letters came from a generic HR email, and within days, they were mine. Their first day was a Tuesday. Overcast sky, studio windows fogged at the corners, the kind of morning that makes things feel slower than they are. Rhea showed up 10 minutes early, holding a reusable coffee cup and wearing a slate gray blazer, clean, fitted, and entirely wrong for the job. Sabrina arrived 7 minutes late in a suede jacket and heels too loud for tile. She snapped a photo of the front window on her way in, captioned it, "New chapter." No tags, no location. They didn't recognize the name L&R Studio Holdings. Why would they? They never followed anything I built, never Googled me, never asked how I afforded my new car or why my nails always looked like a campaign ad. To them, I was still someone who did freelance stuff. Their assignments came through a staffing agency I'd partnered with 2 years earlier, one that specialized in filling short-term support roles for small businesses. We'd used them before for front desk coverage and product launches. It was discreet, streamlined, and allowed me full control over job descriptions. The listing I wrote was simple. Client Services Assistant. Responsibilities include product inventory, workspace maintenance, basic hospitality tasks. No prior beauty experience required. Must be comfortable standing for long periods and taking direction. I didn't write it for them specifically. I wrote it for anyone who underestimated labor they didn't understand. Their offer letters went out via a generic HR portal. Pay $18.75 per hour. No benefits, no overtime. They signed immediately. The irony? Rhea once said she wouldn't get out of bed for less than $30 an hour. Sabrina used to call anything under $25 entry-level peasantry. But desperation edits values. And now I was the editor. From the upstairs office, corner window, tinted glass, I watched them walk through the lobby like it was foreign territory. It was. This studio didn't look like a makeup place. It looked like a production house. Neutral palette, soft spotlights, architectural shelving that framed every surface like a photo set. Their body language shifted the moment they stepped inside. Rhea straightened her back. Sabrina tucked her phone into her coat. They knew they weren't in retail. They just didn't know who was watching. A junior assistant greeted them. I'd briefed her personally. Don't ask about their last jobs. Don't offer too much context. Keep it procedural. She handed them onboarding packets, a printed task list, and the studio's conduct manual, 8 pages of boundaries, etiquette, and cleaning instructions. I had rewritten it the night before, added a clause about mandatory attendance at year-end events, bolded it. Their daily tasks weren't cruel, but they were invisible. Rhea stocked shelves, tracked delivery logs, managed towel rotation. Sabrina wiped down counters, set out tea for VIP clients, and once spent an hour trying to match a discontinued lip gloss to a test photo. Neither of them ever saw my name. I signed everything from that point on as operations director. Emails came from a Sarah P., a persona I used for internal memos and vendor updates. They didn't question it, because people who feel above something rarely look closely at what's beneath them. Rhea adjusted quickly. She treated the job like a case study in humility, moved efficiently, stayed quiet, only asked questions when absolutely necessary. Sabrina resisted. Week 1, she accidentally used a client's reserved moisturizer on a test brush. Week 2, she arrived with full glam and was asked to reapply with house products to match policy. She smiled like she was being tested. She was. By week 3, they were ghosts in the hallway, familiar but untouchable. They passed each other only once, outside the break room. An awkward pause, no small talk. I made sure their schedules never overlapped again. I reviewed every shift report myself. They were careful, eager. Sabrina started staying 15 minutes late to organize lip wands by SKU. Rhea left notes in the supply log about reorder volumes and vendor inconsistencies. They wanted permanence. They wanted trust. But most of all, they wanted to matter again. They never questioned why the studio seemed to run so smoothly, why the chairs were always booked, why the talent that came through wore brands they hadn't seen on shelves yet, because they thought they were in a job. They never imagined they were in a story they didn't write, one I'd been authoring since the first time they called my work a hobby. By week 5, the assistant manager forwarded a message from both sisters. Just wanted to ask if we'll be included in the end-of-year event. Happy to help set up or assist behind the scenes. I approved it. Sent back a 3-word reply. Attendance is mandatory. And on the calendar, I marked the date. The gala would be held in the studio. Full makeover, live demo, awards, and a microphone with my name on it. They showed up to work like background actors, present, polished, silent. Rhea learned quickly. She always did. She moved with the same clipped efficiency she used at family dinners when she'd orchestrate the seating chart and correct anyone's grammar mid-sentence. Here, she restocked cotton pads, monitored cleaning schedules, took quiet pride in reorganizing the storage closet by expiration dates. She never smiled, but she always nodded. Sabrina took longer. Her energy was performative by nature. The first few shifts, she tried to overcompensate, complimented clients too loudly, hovered over stylists, offered unsolicited beauty tips from her on-camera days. When corrected, she laughed it off. Old habits, you know. Media life. But after her second scheduling error and a gentle warning from the assistant manager, she stopped performing. Mostly, they still didn't know. The company email came from Sarah P. The paychecks arrived via the agency. The policies were enforced by the floor leads, not me. I was there, of course. Every day, tucked in the upstairs office, watching on the cameras, answering internal Slack threads, approving purchase orders, and I watched them adjust. Sabrina started asking real questions about product lines, about client allergies, about how our stylists handled overlapping appointments. Rhea began writing inventory notes in the margins, suggesting suppliers that were more cost-effective. They weren't bad employees. They were just average, and average was exactly what they'd always said I would be. Once, a client asked Sabrina if she'd ever done makeup herself. She smiled tightly and said, "I'm just part of the support team here." I watched the clip 3 times that night, paused on her face. Not shame, not sadness, just resignation. She had accepted a story without realizing who wrote it. They were good at being small, and they had never practiced that before. One morning, I left a note in the staff lounge, typed, laminated, pinned between the coffee pot and the microwave. "Thank you to our team for another flawless quarter. Your consistency is what keeps this place running." LR double quote. I watched Sabrina read it twice. She mouthed the initials, LR. She tilted her head like it meant something. Then she poured her coffee and said nothing. Rhea never commented on it at all. That was the power. Not that they didn't know, but that they didn't think to ask. They never considered that the woman signing their paychecks was the same one they used to laugh about over turkey and cheap wine. They thought LR stood for some investor, some guy, some faceless entity that built the studio and left the beauty work to the girls. And every time they wiped down a ring light or cleaned a powder brush, they were restoring the empire of a woman they never once believed in. That's the kind of training you can't teach, only earn. So I let them keep their ignorance, like a mirror they refused to look into, because I had something better than their respect. I had the schedule, the roster, and the microphone. The gala was 2 weeks away. The email went out on a Monday morning. Subject line: L&R Year-End Gala. Formal invitation plus RSVP body. As part of our commitment to honoring every member of our team, attendance at this year's celebration is mandatory for all studio staff. Location: main floor. Dress code: formal black. Guests not permitted. I watched the read receipts roll in. Ria opened it at 9:12 a.m., marked interested. Sabrina at 10:03 a.m. clicked the dress code link twice. They didn't ask questions, not to their leads, not to each other, not even when the custom-printed invitations were slid into their locker cubbies, black cardstock with gold foil and embossed L&R Studio branding. They showed up like everyone else that Friday night. Black dresses, neutral heels, freshly done makeup, done by someone else, I noted. They didn't dare use studio product on themselves. Not tonight. The lights were dimmed, the mirrors covered. Soft jazz floated through the room, broken only by the clinking of glasses and the hush of new arrivals. We'd transformed the studio, stations cleared, floral centerpieces in the ring light mounts, an open bar at the product counter. Stylists mingled in cocktail dresses and blazers, assistants leaned into soft conversations near the coat check, and influencers took slow-mo videos in front of our logo wall. It was elegant, precise. Not a single detail screamed beauty salon. It looked like an agency launch, exactly as I wanted. Ria lingered near the back. She was scanning, not sipping, calculating the hierarchy, who ran what, who knew whom. Sabrina moved in wider arcs, greeted stylists she didn't usually speak to, laughed too brightly when someone mistook her for a freelancer. She didn't correct them. I waited until everyone had arrived, waited until the champagne had been poured and the lighting dimmed further. Then I stepped onto the makeshift stage, small, square, elevated 1 foot off the ground, perfectly positioned beneath the central light fixture I had custom installed last fall. There was no name tag on my dress, no label, just authority. The microphone was already hot. I didn't need to clear my throat. The room quieted the second I took the mic. "Good evening," I said. "I want to begin tonight by saying thank you to the ones who show up early, stay late, and hold this brand together with their hands, their minds, and their consistency." There were nods, some claps. Not from Ria, not from Sabrina. They stood together now, near the stairwell, watching, not fully understanding. I continued. "It's been an extraordinary year. We expanded our roster, doubled our clientele, and more importantly, refined our standard. That's not something you do with luck, that's something you do with people." Soft claps again, louder this time. I let the pause linger. "Tonight, I'd like to thank a very specific group, a group who joined us mid-year, who didn't ask for spotlight but never missed a shift." I looked at them directly. Both froze. I smiled, just barely. "Our junior assistants." I turned toward the room and gestured toward the back. "Ria, Sabrina, could you both come forward?" They didn't move at first. Someone gently nudged Sabrina. Another whispered something to Ria. They stepped forward slowly, one in stilettos, one in flats. Their faces were blank, controlled. But their eyes, those flickered. Recognition had arrived, not from the email, not from the studio name, from me. And now it was too late to turn around. When they reached the front, I held the silence just a moment longer. Long enough for it to settle, long enough for the realization to bloom behind their eyes and bleed through their posture. Then I said, without smiling, "Let's all give a round of applause to my sisters." The room went still, then fractured into scattered claps, confused smiles, nervous laughter. A stylist near the bar muttered, "Wait, what?" loud enough to echo. Sabrina's face went pale beneath her contour. Rhea blinked once, then dropped her gaze to the floor. They didn't speak. They couldn't. I let the applause fizzle on its own. No big finale, no speech about growth, no forced forgiveness, just revelation, because the point wasn't to shame them, it was to name them, to finally label them the way they once labeled me, support staff. I didn't give them medals, I didn't give them flowers, I gave them clarity. When the applause faded, I handed the microphone to the event host and stepped off the stage, walked past Rhea, past Sabrina. Neither looked at me, neither followed. The rest of the night moved without friction. Photos, champagne, casual congratulations from stylists who now saw me with sharper outlines. People assumed it was a branding moment, a playful flex. No one outside our bloodline understood what had actually been done. But my sisters knew, because once you've been reduced to a punchline, there's no mistaking what it feels like to be named on stage by the person you thought would never stand taller than you. They didn't quit that night. That would have been too dignified. They finished the evening as expected, collected their things, thanked the floor leads, and walked out into the winter air without a scene. It took 2 weeks. Rhea emailed Sarah P. to resign, said she was exploring other opportunities more aligned with her career goals. Sabrina ghosted her next shift, never returned her studio keycard. The agency recovered it from her mailbox. I let both resignations process silently. No follow-ups, no thank yous. Because closure isn't something I owed them. They didn't reach out, didn't try to explain, didn't apologize. They knew. They remembered every time they'd said, "It's not a real job." At least you're doing something cute. Just don't end up living in your makeup bag. Now I owned the studio. The name, the narrative. They used to joke that I played with brushes. Now I had an assistant whose only job was to sanitize theirs. They thought careers were built from prestige, but mine was built from precision, from silence, from every discarded sentence they never thought I'd remember. I didn't post about the gala, didn't tag them, didn't gloat. The photos went up on the studio's business page, professional shots, subtle captions. The final image in the album was black and white, a single chair, empty, lit from above. I captioned it, "Every seat matters, especially the ones people don't think you deserve." Clients liked it. Stylists reposted it. Rhea and Sabrina never acknowledged it. Of course they didn't. You don't comment on the portrait when you realize you're in the background. You just keep scrolling. Now, I get asked all the time, "How did you start? Where did you learn?" I smile and say, "At the dinner table." Because when you're underestimated by people who think they know you best, you learn early how to work in the shadows. You learn how to file every insult in alphabetical order, how to clean resentment until it gleams like glass, how to build quietly until your name is the last one on the microphone. And when that day comes, you speak with a calm they've never earned.